If you feel stuck in your job or your life, this video will help you make one clear decision. Not emotionally, not impulsively, but rationally. By the end of this video, you will know whether staying where you are is a deliberate, intelligent choice, or whether you are quietly avoiding a decision that already costs you time, money, and energy. And if you need structure to think this through properly, I've linked the exact decision framework I use below. Most people who say they are stuck are not actually trapped. They have a job, they have income, they have a routine that works, at least on paper. Nothing is breaking down dramatically, and that is precisely the issue. Real traps create urgency. Subtle dissatisfaction creates delay. When everything is fine enough, decisions feel unnecessary. And when decisions feel unnecessary, they get postponed indefinitely. Stuck becomes a convenient label. It removes responsibility. It suggests there is nothing to decide. But in reality, most people are not stuck. They are undecided. There is a gray zone that quietly absorbs years. You don't hate your work. You don't feel fulfilled either. You are competent, reliable, and paid reasonably. But something feels unresolved. This zone is dangerous because it doesn't hurt enough to force action. And it doesn't reward enough to create satisfaction. So people adapt. They lower expectations. They rationalize stagnation. They tell themselves they are being responsible. Years pass this way. Not because people are weak, but because no decision framework is in place. Waiting feels intelligent. It feels like analysis, like caution, like maturity. You tell yourself, I need more information. This isn't the right time. I'll decide when things are clearer. The problem is not that waiting is irrational. The problem is that waiting is rarely evaluated. Most people never calculate the cost of staying undecided. They only calculate the risk of change. That creates a distorted comparison. Every year you avoid a decision, you pay a price. Not all at once. Not in a way that triggers alarm. That's why most people underestimate it. The cost of indecision is rarely dramatic. It is incremental, compounding, and mostly invisible while it's happening. And because it's invisible, it feels safe. 1. The cost of lost optionality. The first cost is optionality. Options do not disappear suddenly. They erode quietly. Skills that are not applied strategically lose relevance. Networks weaken when they are not activated. Opportunities shrink as life becomes more fixed. At 30, a delay often feels reversible. At 40, it feels inconvenient. At 50, it feels expensive. Not because change is impossible, but because the price of change increases the longer no decision is made. Indecision doesn't freeze time. It lets time work against you. 2. The cognitive cost and the permanent background load. Undecided situations consume mental energy, not consciously, in the background. Part of your attention is always running the same loop. Should I stay? Is this still the right place? What if I wait another year? This background calculation drains focus from everything else. You may still function well, you may still perform, but it requires more effort than necessary. Over time, this leads to a constant low-level fatigue that people often misinterpret as loss of motivation, lack of discipline, or burnout. In reality, it's unresolved decision pressure. 3. The cost to confidence and agency. Every postponed decision teaches your nervous system something. It teaches. Avoiding commitment feels safer than choosing. At first, this feels protective. Over time, it becomes identity. People stop seeing themselves as decision makers. They start seeing themselves as responders. They adapt instead of choosing. They manage instead of directing. This is not a personality flaw, it is a learned response to prolonged indecision. And once agency weakens, even small decisions feel heavy. 4. The financial cost. Nobody calculates. Most people calculate financial risk only on the side of change. What if I earn less? What if this move fails? Very few calculate the financial cost of staying undecided. Stagnant income trajectories, missed negotiation windows, delayed skill repositioning. Indecision often costs more than a failed attempt, because it compounds quietly over time. You don't lose money today, you lose earning potential tomorrow. 5. The emotional cost. Quiet resentment. One of the most underestimated costs is resentment. Not explosive resentment, it's quiet resentment. toward work that once felt acceptable, routines that no longer make sense, even people who did nothing wrong. This resentment doesn't come from the situation itself. It comes from knowing, on some level, that you are participating in something you have not fully chosen. Resentment is often not about pressure. It's about unknown decisions. 6. Why this is so dangerous. None of these costs trigger urgency. There is no deadline, no warning signal. That's why indecision can last for years without intervention. People assume, if it was really bad, I would feel it. But by the time it feels bad, leverage is already reduced. The most expensive decisions are not the wrong ones. They are the never-made ones. This is why clarity matters, not because it feels good, but because it stops invisible losses. You don't need to act immediately, but you do need to see what staying is costing you. Only then does a real decision become possible. This is where most advice goes wrong. People are told they lack courage, that they should just take the leap. That advice is irresponsible. You are not afraid of work. You are not lazy. You are aware of consequences. You understand that decisions affect income, family stability, reputation, long-term security. That awareness does not disappear through motivation. It requires structure. In almost every case, one decision is being avoided, not 10. 1. Stay or leave. Speak or remain silent. Accept predictability or accept uncertainty. You don't refuse this decision openly. You defer it quietly. And deferral becomes the default. After long enough, you stop seeing it as a choice at all. Most people believe they are still thinking. They are not. They are already choosing, just without ownership. There are only 2 real positions. 1. Staying deliberately. Staying by avoidance. They look identical externally. Internally, they lead to completely different lives. Only one of them is stable. At this point, some people realize something uncomfortable. I've never actually compared staying and leaving properly. That's normal. Most people don't. That's why I created a structured decision framework specifically for this situation. Not to tell you what to do, but to force an honest comparison between your real options. It's linked below. Use it or don't. But don't rely on vague thinking for high-stakes decisions. Here is the core logic you need, whether you use my framework or your own. Question 1. What does staying unchanged cost over the next 3 years? Not emotionally, practically. Income ceiling, skill relevance, energy levels, mental load. 3 years matter because they are long enough to compound, and short enough to evaluate honestly. Question 2. What problem does staying actually solve? Be precise. Security? Predictability? Avoiding disruption? None of these are wrong, but they have a price. Question 3. If nothing improves externally, would I still choose this path? No promotion, no sudden breakthrough, no rescue. If the answer is no, you are not choosing. You are hoping. Hope is not a decision strategy. Clarity removes flexibility. Once you say, I stay because security matters more to me than growth, you lose the comfort of pretending this is temporary. That's why people avoid clarity. Not because it's painful, but because it binds future behavior. This is where most people get stuck again. They understand the logic but struggle to apply it objectively to their own life. That's exactly what a framework is for. Not inspiration, not pressure, just structure that prevents self-deception. If you want that structure, it's there. This matters. Staying is not failure. Staying can be intelligent, strategic, and aligned, but only if it is consciously chosen. It is reviewed periodically. It matches your real priorities, not inherited expectations. A stable life is respectable. A default life is expensive. Most people don't decide when they have leverage. They decide when. Burnout forces them. Resentment peaks. Options shrink. That's not planning, that's reaction. Early decisions preserve freedom. Late decisions manage damage. If this video resonated, don't rush into action. But don't drift either. If you want a clean way to think this through, without hype, without pressure, the decision framework is linked below. It won't tell you what to do. It will help you see what you are already choosing. If there is one idea to take away from this video, it is this. You are probably not stuck. You are likely standing in front of a decision you have not fully owned yet. That matters because being stuck suggests powerlessness. Avoiding a decision does not. Most people don't avoid decisions because they are weak or unmotivated. They avoid them because the consequences are real and irreversible once chosen. That is a rational fear. But what often goes unnoticed is that not deciding does not protect you from consequences. It simply delays them and makes them harder to influence later. Every month of indecision quietly reinforces a default path. Not because it is the best option, but because it is the least questioned. Over time, this default begins to feel inevitable, and inevitability is often mistaken for fate. But it is not fate. It is repetition without review. Deciding does not mean acting immediately. It does not mean quitting tomorrow, confronting anyone today, or burning bridges. Deciding means something much quieter and more powerful. It means acknowledging the trade-off you are already making. Staying has benefits. Staying has costs. Leaving has risks. Leaving has opportunities. Clarity begins when you stop pretending one side has none. Once you see the decision clearly, two things happen. First, uncertainty decreases. Not because the outcome is guaranteed, but because the parameters are defined. Second, responsibility returns to where it belongs. With you. That responsibility can feel heavy at first, but it is also stabilizing. Because a life built on conscious trade-offs feels very different from a life shaped by drift. If you stay with ownership. If you leave with intention. Both are valid. What is expensive is staying without choosing. Clarity does not promise comfort. It promises orientation. And orientation is what allows you to move, or stay, without constant internal negotiation. That is where calm replaces tension. Not because the decision is easy, but because it is yours. In the next video, we'll go one step further. We'll look at the most difficult version of this decision, whether staying in your current job is actually the safer financial choice, or the more expensive one in the long run. If this question matters to you, stay with the channel.